Hi everybody, my name is Rachel and today I'm going to share about my bread journey. I was gluten-free for many years and now I can eat bread freely. I make all of our own bread products and I have learned so much along the way. So grab yourself a warm beverage and join me as I share about how I came to eat real bread. Let's get started. My story begins in high school. I remember getting up in the morning, putting on a shirt that I really liked, but by the time lunch came around, I did not like how that shirt fit anymore and I was uncomfortable. My belly got so bloated, it stuck out, it was hard to the touch, pushed on my pants, and I did not like how it looked. I thought it was a normal part of eating, like you put food in your belly and it gets bigger, but it was uncomfortable. And I was researching gluten-free symptoms for a family member, I believe, and I realized I had a number of the problems on the list. So I thought, maybe I should try going gluten-free. Well, I did. My stomach stayed flatter. I didn't experience that intense bloating, and that solved my problem. So from there forward, I was gluten-free. That lasted about 6 years. Now, while I was happy that my stomach was flatter and I wasn't uncomfortable anymore, I really missed bread. And gluten-free bread it doesn't cut it. Like, it makes a sandwich, but no, I wanted real bread, real yummy, delicious bread. And gluten-free just wasn't cutting it. I'm not sure how I was introduced to the concept, but I read somewhere online that some people with a gluten intolerance can handle sourdough. Sourdough naturally ferments the grains and makes it more easily digestible. So then I started researching sourdough and I was totally in it. Like, if this will allow me to eat bread, done, I'll do it. And I liked working in the kitchen before, but this was really fun. I started a sourdough starter from scratch. My first couple loaves were absolutely atrocious, but I stuck with it. My husband helped me stick with it, and I figured out that I could have sourdough bread. I also remember in my first pregnancy, I have 2 children now, and in my first pregnancy, I decided I wanted to eat some gluten because I wasn't sure if I avoided gluten 100%, I didn't want my child to be gluten-free and be in the same mess that I am. So just in case that's how it worked, that my gluten whatever passed through to my baby, I decided to do that. I also thought, if I'm going to get bloated from eating gluten, I already have a belly. Like, what's a little bloating? So I enjoyed all the gluten I wanted during that pregnancy, and it was not a big deal. Well, fast forward, I now have a baby, and I have to decide, do I stay gluten-free? Do I do all sourdough? Do I just eat regularly again? Well, I tried a little bit of everything, but I realized that I wasn't really having the bloating that I had before when I eat gluten. I thought, maybe pregnancy changed my body. That I can certainly imagine that being the case. I reintroduced it and now I'm fine, so let's just eat gluten again. And it was awesome. I also did some sourdough and I ate regular gluten, and it was so nice to be back to normal again. So while being gluten-free was no fun, and I'm really happy to have gluten back in my life, I'm so grateful for the introduction to sourdough. I continued, to make sourdough products. I enjoyed baking. I've always enjoyed working in my kitchen, but bread baking was new to me and it was awesome. It's half science, half art. You get your hands in the dough, you get to learn about it, you practice all the time, and then you get to eat it, and it's delicious. I remember, I think this is so funny now, my now husband, when we were dating, we were at his family's house, and his mom is known for her homemade bread, especially for her homemade dinner rolls. So every family function, she brings a big tray of dinner rolls. And I was helping her in the kitchen, and she was gonna have me help her with the dinner rolls. So she handed me this ball of dough, and I had zero idea what to do with it. I was so embarrassed. I had no idea what to do. So I just held it and I watched her make a roll, and I tried to mimic the same thing and put it in the pan. I don't remember anything that happened after that because I was mortified. I had no idea what to do. I had never handled dough before that time, and people may think that I grew up this way, but my mom bought all of our bread. I didn't do dough growing up. So I think it's just hilarious that now I'm teaching other people how to make dinner rolls, and even more than what my mother-in-law does. I'm using sourdough to leaven them. So I hope this can encourage you that no matter where you start, you can learn. I read blogs, I watched videos, hours and hours of teaching myself how to do this. Many ups and downs, good recipes, not so good recipes, and here I am today to share about bread. Fast forward a little bit more, I'm doing sourdough for all of our bread products, but I'm still using all-purpose flour from the store. I don't remember who introduced me to the concept that flour from the store is not the main ingredient. Like, the flour is not the ingredient, it's the wheat. I thought, I've never heard of that before. You buy flour from the store. I thought I was cooking from scratch. I'm using sourdough, using flour. I thought I'm doing the right things. Well, then I learned that you can buy wheat berries and use a grain mill and make your own flour. Never heard of that before. I started looking into it a little bit and realized it was awesome. But I couldn't get my hopes up very much because I didn't have a grain mill and I didn't have access to grain, and I didn't want to get too worked up about it without having an actual option. So I put it off to the side, learned about other things, and continued to enjoy making my sourdough bread with my all-purpose flour from the store. Well, I have the best family in the world. My husband, my in-laws, and my parents all went in on a grain mill for my birthday just this year. And when they surprised me with it, I was over the moon, and I started devouring every piece of information I could about freshly milled flour and how to include that in our lives. And my mind was just blown, which is part of the reason I'm teaching this now, because I just want to share it. It's amazing, and I want everybody to know and everybody to try it. So they order me my grain mill. Well, it's on back order, just like everything around that time. So I have to wait a couple of months to get my grain mill. And so I think it was finally June of 2022 that I got my grain mill. It's now October of 2022, and I just cannot get enough. I've gone through pounds and pounds and pounds of wheat berries. I buy it in 100 pounds at a time now because I bake bread for other people. I make all of our own bread products. I would say 90% of them are sourdough and 100% of them are using freshly milled flour. And it brings me so much joy to make these bread products, to know that they're delicious, but they're also extremely nutritious. And I can share that more in other videos or share my resources for learning all of those things. But here I am, I can now eat gluten 100%, and I make all of our bread products from sourdough and freshly milled flour, and never in a million years would I have thought that this is where I would be. And I'm so grateful for all of those little introductions along the way, all of that perseverance to learn how to make the bread, to keep trying. Thanks to my husband for eating it and everybody else that I tried recipes on. And I'm so happy to be here now and hopefully help you skip some of those hurdles that I experienced in my learning process. Looking back now, I'm pretty confident that my pregnancy is not what changed my body in its ability to then digest gluten, but a long process of healing my gut microbiome. Growing up, I had things I couldn't have. We had picky family members. My mom did the best she could and fed us good food along the way, but the way I treated my body and the things that I ate, my gut was just not happy with me. And because of that imbalance, my body was not able to properly digest the gluten, which is what caused the inflammatory reaction, which for me was bloating. And so being gluten-free gave my gut a rest. And as I learned to cook for myself in college and then being married, I think I was able to heal my gut microbiome without even realizing it. But looking back now, I made my own sauerkraut, which is full of probiotics, and cooking from scratch in whole foods and lots of fruits and vegetables, I was able to incorporate all of those things, rebalance my gut microbiome, and then make it robust enough to be able to digest that gluten. And the gluten I was consuming was mostly in the form of sourdough, which is also easier to digest. And now I'm very grateful I get to make these sourdough and freshly milled items that the sourdough breaks down the phytic acid and other things in the wheat that make it less digestible. And the freshly milled grains are packed full of nutrition. So I'm unwrapping that package and letting my body have access to all of those nutrients as easily as possible. And it's so good. It tastes so good. And it's not even hard to make or eat at this point. Certainly it was a learning process, but I'm hoping that by sharing my story and sharing these tutorials and sharing what I know, that I can help you skip a couple of those hurdles that I had along the way. So if you're still with me, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you can check out some of my other videos on my favorite bread products, how I include sourdough, how I include freshly milled grains, and how I worked my way up to it. I don't want to include only recipes with sourdough and freshly milled flour because not all of you have access to that, and I certainly didn't start that way. I've only had my grain mill for, I don't know, 6 or 7 months, and here I am. So thank you again for watching. I hope this was helpful for you, and maybe this can impact your bread journey too.